Next is generic strategies help a firm to gain and sustain competitive advantage over its rivals. Elaborate the statement by giving suitable examples. So first of all, generic strategies help a firm to gain and sustain competitive advantage. So generic strategies were given by Michael Porter. He gave these generic competitive strategies which help in sustaining competitive advantage, and these strategies are known as generic because it can be used by any firm, even for the non-profit organization. So Michael Porter gave this generic strategies. Now, what were these generic strategies? Again, it can be drawn with the help of a 2x2 matrix. Relative cost and marketing differentiation. Okay. Low, high, low again. So if you will see in this strategy, we have if relative cost of producing the product is low and marketing differentiation is high, it is known as cost focus strategy. If cost is high, differentiation is high, it is known as differentiation focus. Then cost is low, differentiation is low, it is known as cost leadership. And if relative cost is high and differentiation is low, then it is known as differentiation. Okay. Now there is another strategy which is known as struck in the middle. This is known as stuck in middle. Okay. So Michael Porter gave this 5 you can say strategies: cost leadership, differentiation, cost focus, and differentiation focus. You can understand with the help of the diagram also that if the leadership, in the case of cost leadership, if the cost is low and differentiation is low, it is known as leadership, like in the case of MI phones, Xiaomi phones, because they have to provide you lowest cost phones with similar features to the ones that are there in the market, and it has gained a lot of Indian market because of its cost advantage. Okay, differentiation is when cost is high but marketing differentiation is low. Okay, wait. Yeah. So differentiation is low. In this case, it is like iPhones. Because iPhones, when we compare MI phones with iPhones, they have a particular type of differentiation, but the cost of producing those phones is high, and they are expensive, but they are differentiated from the market. They are differentiated from all the other phones that are available in the market. Okay, because of their special features that are not available in any other phone. They have all the other phones have Android software, they have Apple software, so that's why they have iOS. So that's why it is different from the other phones. Next is cost focus. Cost focus strategy is where your cost is low, but marketing differentiation is high. Okay, so in this case, like Diet Coke, that was introduced by Coca-Cola, where they focus on the cost being low. All right, and differentiation focuses when both relative cost is high and marketing differentiation is also high, which is known as, like, for example, organic food. Or you can also take the example of Starbucks. Starbucks provides the most expensive coffees, most expensive drinks, and but these drinks are take a lot of cost to make. Plus, these drinks are differentiated from all the other products, all the other coffee products that are available in the market. But because of their even if they are expensive, people are feel to buy the Starbucks coffee. Okay, so this is differentiation focus. So you can just give like elaborate the statement by defining what Michael Porter generic strategy is. You can draw the diagram and explain in 1 or 2 lines all the strategies that are there. Okay, next last one is stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle is where you can't achieve both. It says that either you can have cost benefit or you can have differentiation benefit. Okay, so there's a trade-off between cost and differentiation. Either the company can have cost benefit, either the company can produce the products on low cost, or either it can produce in the different products. So that's why these are differentiation. And if the company tries to achieve both, then it will be stuck in the middle. That is, it will not be in any kind of strategy. It will not be able to achieve competitive advantage. All right. Next is explain the growth strategies of expansion, integration, and diversification by citing suitable examples. Under which conditions are these strategies most suitable for adoption? So with this type of question, because there are multiple strategies, we will try to just draw a diagram and I'll explain it to you how you can write it. So growth strategies, there are mainly 3 strategies: expansion, integration, and diversification. Okay, now let's start with diversification. So diversification can be done in 2 ways, that is concentric and conglomerate. So what we'll do first, we will explain what is diversification. Diversification is when the company tries to expand, to grow its business in new lines of businesses. That is, they want to enter into new lines of businesses. So they can go for diversification. Diversification can be done in 2 ways, concentric and conglomeratic. Concentric is when they go for related diversification, uh, like let's say if it is a steel producing company, okay, and it goes for car manufacturing also. So that is related diversification. Conglomeratic is unrelated. Like a company was producing shirts and now it starts producing, it extended its business in producing, let's say, car tires. Okay, so that is conglomeratic, where it is an unrelated diversification. Integration. Integration is when it is done externally by combining with other firms. Diversification was done internally. In this diversification, company is not combining or combining any other firm. They are creating a new uh, uh, branch of business, you can say. Okay. In integration, they are combining with other firms. Integration can be done again in 2 parts, that is horizontal integration and vertical integration. Horizontal integration is when they acquire company of same business, like Indigo acquiring SpiceJet. Okay, so in that case, it would be horizontal integration. In case of vertical integration, again there are 2 parts. It could be backward vertical integration and forward vertical integration. Vertical integration basically means when the company moves in its supply chain, integrates in its supply chain. It means that backward is if let's say tire manufacturer was there, but it went to the rubber manufacturer. So it acquired its rubber manufacturer and it was a tire manufacturing firm, but it integrated backwardly. That means they acquired the main raw material manufacturer. So in this case, acquiring raw material. Okay. Forward is if let's say there is a cloth manufacturing company and it acquires a shirt manufacturing company. So that means in this we are moving forward in the supply chain. So we are acquiring or integrating with our buyers. Okay, so that is vertical forward integration and backward integration. Next is last strategy is expansion. Expansion can be done either by concentration or it can be international. Concentration, or you can also say domestic. In international, the firm can go international by exporting, licensing, joint venture, or by direct investment, that is FDIs or FPIs. Okay, so these are the four modes of there are various modes of going international. So these are some ways where the firm can expand internationally by either starting exporting or by giving them licensing rights or taking licensing rights, by forming joint ventures, or by investing directly in the foreign firms. Okay, and the last one is concentration. Concentration is can be done in four ways. Let me just draw it here. Concentration can be done in four ways. It can be market penetration, first, second, product development, third, market development, and fourth, diversification. So concentration strategy of expansion can be divided into four parts: market penetration, product development, market development, and diversification, which is also known as ENSOF metrics, the metric that is given by ENSOF. So market penetration, where you try to penetrate the market, that means you focus only on one product, and with that product you try to achieve the market share. Product development, when the company starts innovating the product. Okay, market development, where the company is increasing the range of products and developing, that is, or you can say the company is creating its own product to develop its market. Diversification, that we have done, diversification can be done in two ways. So all of these strategies are kind of interrelated also, but if we are talking about expansion, integration, and different diversification, that's how we can divide it. So what we have to do is, in this type of question, you can just draw a diagram and give a 1 or 2 line explanation of all the different types of strategies.
ठीक है, next question. A number of public sector units are managed and controlled by the government. ठीक है. Justify the state participation in business by citing suitable examples from these PSUs. Do you think that the government decision to monetize some of these PSUs is justified? Give reason to support your answer. ठीक है. तो इसमें ना दो क्वेश्चन है. पहला क्वेश्चन ये और दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये. पहले क्वेश्चन में क्या पूछ रहा है? A number of public sector undertakings are managed and controlled by government. हमें स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन को जस्टिफाई करना है by citing suitable examples from these PSUs. ठीक है. तो अब अगर आप सिलेबस देखोगे तो पहले ही वर्ड ये है कि स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन इज बिजनेस. तो उसमें ना आप नाइस इंट्रो अपना चालू कर सकते हो. वो क्या है? क्या है वो? कि स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन पहले तो होता कितने तरीके से हो सकता है. तो स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन चार तरीके से हो सकता है. आपका क्या कहते हैं, रेगुलेटरी रोल होता है गवर्नमेंट का, जैसे आरबीआई है, सेबी है, कोई लॉ है, कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया है. हाँ, या फिर आपका एंटरप्रेन्योर रोल होता है जिसमें ये पीएसयूज आ जाएंगे कि गवर्नमेंट बिजनेस कर रही है ना. तीसरा आपका होता है क्या कहते हैं, प्रमोशनल रोल होता है गवर्नमेंट का कि भाई वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर दे दिया, वो फैसिलिटीज दे दी, वो एनवायरनमेंट दे दिया, कंट्री कॉम्पिटिटिवनेस जैसे बढ़ती है ना. चौथा आपका हो सकता है प्लानिंग रोल, जो कि अब थोड़ा सा नीति आयोग के आने के बाद डिफरेंशिएट है कि प्लानिंग, इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग भी गवर्नमेंट करता है, तो वो इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग भी स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन, बिजनेस में एक तरीके से पार्टिसिपेशन है. तो ऐसे ना आपने नाइसली इंट्रो दे दिया. ठीक है, अब हम क्वेश्चन के एसेंस को समझते हैं. तो क्वेश्चन का एसेंस क्या है? क्वेश्चन कह रहा है कि अ नंबर ऑफ पीएसयूज आर मैनेज एंड कंट्रोल बाय गवर्नमेंट. तो इसमें ना जस्टिफाई करना है हमें, यानी हमें मान के चलना है कि ये सही बात है. है ना, हमें जस्टिफाई करना है स्टेट पार्टिसिपेशन को। तो अब ना इसके फेवर में बात लिखनी है, तो कैसे लिखेंगे, लेट अस ट्राई टू सी दैट। ठीक है, आर्ग्यूमेंट इन फेवर, बस बात इतनी सी है। यानी सबसे पहला पॉइंट हम लिख सकते हैं क्या, प्रमोट इकोनॉमिक बैलेंस, इकोनॉमिक बैलेंस, बैलेंस डेवलपमेंट जो कहते हैं ना, बैलेंस इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, कि सरकार ना जगह जगह इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, खुद वो कंपनी में होने के कारण जगह जगह वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर देती है। मैं आपको ना एक पर्सनल एग्जांपल बताता हूँ। 2012 में जब मैं गंगोत्री से घूम गया था, तब उस टाइम पे ना इतनी सारी सिम्स नहीं होती थी, एयरटेल, बीएसएनएल, आइडिया, इस टाइप की सिम्स थी। ठीक है, तो अब वहां पे ना 3000 फीट, 3000 मीटर की ऊंचाई पर मेरा जो शायद आइडिया का नेटवर्क था वो खत्म हो गया था, तो मेरे पास केवल बीएसएनएल का ऑप्शन था। अब देखिए क्या हुआ, बीएसएनएल सरकार की वो है, पीएसयू है, तो उसने ना क्या किया, उसने लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी दे दी मेरे को, क्योंकि पता है कि यहाँ पे जो प्राइवेट कंपनीज है वो इन्वेस्ट नहीं करेंगी, क्योंकि वहां जनता ही नहीं है खरीदने वाली। आप समझ रहे हो, सो इट इज अ वेरी गुड एग्जाम्पल। एक बैलेंस इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट पीएसयू को जस्टिफाई करने के लिए एक अच्छा पॉइंट है। ठीक है, ठीक है। इसके बाद सेकंड पॉइंट में लिख सकता हूं कि कई सारी ना क्रिटिकल इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, क्रिटिकल इंडस्ट्रीज हैं जिसका, जो कि बैंकरप्ट हो जाए, इनका फॉल होना संभव हो ही नहीं सकता किसी भी इकोनॉमी के लिए, बहुत जरूरी इंडस्ट्रीज है, तो वहां पे गवर्नमेंट को होना जरूरी है, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट के पास अच्छी खासी फाइनेंसिंग है, राइट। तो जैसे डिफेंस है, एटॉमिक रिसर्च है, या आपका रेलवे ट्रांसपोर्ट है। हमारी रेलवे तो काफी कुछ डिपेंड करता है, और ये भी ना मैं उससे जोड़ रहा हूँ कि जो इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी आई थी 51 में, 56 में, और जो भी क्रिटिकल इंडस्ट्रीज की राइट डेफिनेशन है। ठीक है, तीसरा, कई सारी इंडस्ट्री है जो हैवी, जिसमें है ना हैवी इन्वेस्टमेंट लगता है, या फिर जिनका जस्टिफिकेशन पीरियड बहुत ज्यादा है। अगेन प्राइवेट उसमें क्यों स्टार्ट करेगा, है ना, प्राइवेट उसमें स्टार्ट करेगा जिसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट कम हो और जस्टिफिकेशन पीरियड कम हो, तो उस इंडस्ट्रीज का पर होना जरूरी है, तो इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट इसमें आ जाती है। जैसे मैं आपको बताऊं, जैसे स्टील है, ठीक है, हैवी इंटेंसिव इंडस्ट्रीज जैसे कहते हैं, जो जो भी कहते हैं, स्टील है। अब स्टील में क्या था, टाटा तो अच्छा खासा एस्टेब्लिश था, ठीक है, अब टाटा ही अकेला रह जाएगा, जिंदल ही अकेला रह जाएगा, तो फिर मतलब मोनोपोली नहीं हो जाएगी, राइट। तो सरकार का होना भी जरूरी है मोनोपोली के कारण भी, राइट। तो वहां पे सेल सरकार ने खोली और प्राइसेस को बैलेंस किया। ठीक है, तो चौथा प्राइस तो आप यही लिख सकते हैं कि टू स्टेबलाइज द प्राइस। ठीक है, और पांचवा बात आप लिख सकते हैं फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन, फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन चाहिए। अब जैसे 70s में पीएसयूज आए, ठीक है, सॉरी, बैंक नेशनलाइज हुए, यानी बैंकों को सरकारी बना दिया गया। अब बैंकों से बोला गया नहीं तुम जाओगे यार, तुम प्राइवेट नहीं हो, तुम गांव में जाओगे, तुम वहां तुम प्राइवेट सेक्टर का पार्ट बनोगे, केस में देना ही है तुम्हें। ठीक है, या वो तो चल प्राइवेट भी बन जाए, बट एक बात के मतलब, अगेन लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी, है ना। तो इस तरीके से आपने कुछ कुछ आर्गुमेंट्स इन फेवर दे दिए फॉर दी पीएसयूज, और उसको ना थोड़ा सा स्पेक्ट्रम में रखा कि भाई इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट भी करा दिया, क्रिटिकल इंडस्ट्रीज बता दिया, इन्वेस्टमेंट बता दिया, प्राइस को स्टेबलाइज करा दिया, और क्या कहते हैं, ये फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन की बात कर दी। ठीक है, तो अब हम आते हैं दूसरे सवाल पे, विच इज, डू यू थिंक दैट द गवर्नमेंट डिसीजन टू मोनेटाइज सम ऑफ दीज पीएसयूज इज जस्टिफाइड। ठीक है, देखिए बड़ा अच्छा सवाल है, क्योंकि ना अभी तक प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात चल रही थी, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट की बात कर रही थी, तो गवर्नमेंट ने ना 2019 में एक नया टर्म कॉइन किया, विच इज एसेट मोनेटाइजेशन। इसका मतलब क्या है, इसका मतलब ये है कि गवर्नमेंट की वो रिसोर्सेज जो आइडियल पड़ी हुई है, जिनका कोई इस्तेमाल नहीं हो रहा, गवर्नमेंट स्टार्ट सेलिंग देम, सो दैट उससे फंड क्रिएट किया जा सके। और इसमें ना बहुत अच्छा वर्ड यूज किया है, सब ऑप्टिमली यूटिलाइज्ड, सब ऑप्टिमली यूटिलाइज्ड रिसोर्सेज। ठीक है, तो पहले तो ये बताओ कि एसेट मोनेटाइजेशन क्या है, और सब ऑप्टिमली यूटिलाइज को कैसे बेच रहा है गवर्नमेंट। और एक बहुत अच्छी रहने की, गवर्नमेंट का फोकस क्या है, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट से टुवर्ड्स इन्वेस्टमेंट मैनेजमेंट। तो फोकस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट क्या है, ये भी बहुत अच्छा, आप अगर डॉक्यूमेंट पढ़ोगे तो आपको मिलेगा, और अच्छा टर्म लिखा हुआ है कि डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट से इन्वेस्टमेंट मैनेजमेंट की तरफ बढ़ना है। ठीक है, नाउ इसका आपने थोड़ा बहुत बता दिया, इसके बाद ना डिसीजन को जस्टिफाई करना है, जैसे लिखा हुआ है, डू यू थिंक government decision is to monetize some of these PSU is justified. Yes, it is justified. Why? Because by generation of revenue होगा, जनरेशन ऑफ रेवेन्यू होगा. सेकंड रीजन क्या हो सकता है कि उस रिसोर्सेज का एक करेक्ट यूज होगा. ठीक है, वो आइडल नहीं पड़ी है. तीसरा रीजन होता है कि प्राइवेट प्राइवेट पार्टी है जो और अच्छे से मैनेज करेगी, है ना. प्राइवेट पार्टी अच्छे से मैनेज करेगी उसको. ठीक है, तो इस तरीके से क्या कहते हैं, आप इस आंसर को लिख सकते हो. अगेन इसमें ना कई सारे करंट अफेयर से भी आप जोड़ सकते हो कि जो डिपेंड है उसको पहले सरकार ने हैवी इंडस्ट्रीज से लाके मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस में रख दिया. उसको टारगेट भी दिया गया 2022 में कि भाई बीपीसीएल है या फिर आपका क्या कहते हैं शिपिंग कॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया है, इसको कैसे हम वो कर सकते हैं, क्या कहते हैं, मोनेटाइज कर सकते हैं. तो ना ऐसे ना इस आंसर को आप एक बेहतर आंसर बना सकते हो. और अगेन अभी जो फरवरी 2022 में टाटा टोटली हैंड ओवर कर दिया गया है एयर इंडिया को, 5 साल लगे इसमें. इन चीजों को आप जोड़ के आंसर बना सकते हो.
Let us move on to our next question, which is explain the various financing techniques which are employed in foreign trade. See, this is again a very short. It is a 5-marker question basically, so you don't have to go very deep in this. In introductory lines, you can actually tell why financing is required in foreign trade. Basically, because there is a lot of risk involved in that because of the time gap between the payment and the supply of the goods, and there is a need to bridge the gap between the exporter and the importers who have various kind of trust issues. So basically, this is why financing is important. So you can state this in 1 or 2 lines, and then we can move on to explaining various financing techniques. And one more thing, because of the constraint of the word limit here, because this is just a 5-marker question, there are various kind of financing techniques, but I would advise in certain kind of questions, you should stick to 4 or 5 maximum kind of techniques whether you should actually explain them. Also, one more thing you can do is in one line you can write the name of the other techniques also and explain just 4 or 5 of them. All right. So, following that pattern only, let us understand various financing techniques here. First is bank. Let me just. And one more thing, if you do it, diagrammatically, if you would represent, that would be very interesting for the examiner, because he would understand your, ideas in one go, like what do you want to convey through your answer. So first one is like bankers acceptance. Second, discounting. Next one is factoring. And the last one is forfeiting. All right. So these are basically the 4 kind of techniques. So let us understand all of them one by one. First one is bankers acceptance. Now this is a kind of a debt instrument only. See, whenever there is import and export, in case where the importer does not have sufficient funds, he would obviously want to use some of the methods of financing where he can actually, it becomes easy for him to get the exports or get the imports for his or her business. So what happens in this case is the importer, let us do it with the help of a diagram only. All right. See, there is the sales contract between the importer and the exporter. All right. There is this sales contract. Now, the importer does not have sufficient funds at his hand, for now at least. So he would approach his or her bank, the bank which has his deposits also. So he would ask the bank to issue a banker's acceptance so that he can show this to the exporter and finally get the goods delivered to him. All right. So bank draws this banker's acceptance on the deposits of the importers already in the bank. Now, the first step is this sales contract. The second step is he would ask or request for the banker's acceptance. Bank now would issue the banker's acceptance and the importer would show this to the exporter, and finally the exporter then would
would approach his bank with that banker's acceptance. See that I have received this banker's acceptance from the importer. Now after I supply the goods, it is your responsibility to collect the payment from my side from the importer's bank. All right. So finally, what happens is the exporter would sell the goods or export the goods to the importer, and the importer finally asks his bank or pays his bank, and in turn the importer's bank would make the payment to the exporter's bank. So this would be the final step in that. All right. So one of the key features of banker's acceptance is that it can be sold to anyone by the holder on a discounted rate. It is not like this bank only would be receiving the payment or making the payment, or this bank, it can be sold to anybody else also at a discounted rate. Discounted rate means after charging a fee or an interest. All right. So next one is discounting. See, whenever there is this trade, import export is happening, so obviously there is always, or most of the time, there is this export credit contract between the exporter and the importer on the other side. All right, there is this sales contract between them, export credit contract. Now in this contract, where exporter sales or sends the goods to the importer, and importer in turn would issue or gets the exporter one of the kind of negotiable instrument, say for example in this case the bills of exchange. All right. So in this case, when he issues the bills of exchange, now the bill of exchange comes with a certain kind of validity. Say in this case, it is a 90 days of validity. After the 90 days are completed, the exporter would get his payment from the importer. All right. But in the case when the exporter needs money, or he urgently needs money, that is before the 90 days period, what can the exporter do? The exporter would endorse this bills of exchange in the name of his bank. All right. He would ask his bank that you give me the payment for now, and you will later on collect your payment from the importer. All right. So in this case, the bank would provide him the amount of the invoice actually, or the contract here, at a discounted rate. This is why it is called as discounting. All right. He would charge some fee, or we can say, or on an interest, he would give him the whole payment actually, and then the bank later on would take that from the importer. Now one thing is that because it is discounting, so the exporter would not get the full amount of the payment which he was supposed to get from the importer. So he has to pay some fees or interest in that case. All right. Now the next one is factoring. Third one is factoring. Now similarly, whenever the exporter and the importer, they sign the sales contract, and there is this in this contract there is a maturity period of the contract, after which the importer is supposed to pay the exporter the required amount. But again, the exporter may want the amount before the completion of the maturity date, or before the due date arrives. So exporter can actually approach a third party financing agency, which we call as the factoring agency, or we can say it is as a factor. He would approach him, and he would provide him the invoice copy by showing that certain amount has to be has to be received from the importer at a later date, after the sales contract is expired or its maturity has arrived. So in this case, he would ask the factor to collect the payment, and factor would for now give that payment 75 or 80% of the invoice value to the exporter. Why? Because the payment incomplete he would not give to the exporter at this point of time, because he is yet to collect the whole payment from the importer. Also, after the maturity date has arrived, the factoring agency would get the full payment from the importer, and then later on the left out part, which is 15 to 20%, he would then, after taking this payment from the importer, the factoring agency would give that 20% also to the exporter. Now you would be wondering what is the charge of that factoring agency for doing that, because finally the whole amount of the invoice has been given to the exporter at the end. So here he always charges some kind of fees which actually varies from 1.5 to 2% of the sales. All right, so this is factoring. Now next one is, or the last one is forfeiting. See, forfeiting is actually the same process, uh, exactly the same process like of the factoring, with minor differences between the two. And the differences you can actually explain forfeiting's process in detail in your answer, and then explain the minor differences between the two. For example, forfeiting is actually for the medium and the long term receivables. Generally it is used in that case, whereas factoring only the small, or we can say the short term receivables. It is actually used for the short term receivables. All right, and in forfeiting, 100% of the invoice value is actually given, as against factoring where only 70 to 80% of the value is given. And one more thing, that see, 100% of invoice initially. All right, here 75 to 80% of invoice. And one more thing, here the agency is called as forfeiter, and here the agency is called as factor. So this is the basic minor difference. So after explaining them, whether in the diagrammatical form or in a way of a flow chart, you can actually tell the difference between both of them. And finally you can conclude by telling how in India foreign trade financing is done. Just to tell the examiner, because the idea is to tell the examiner how much you know about and within the constraint of that word limit and the marks. So you can actually tell in concluding part that in India, how is foreign trade financing done and what all agencies actually help, such as Exim Bank is there, and Export Credit Guarantee Agency is corporation, is there, and there are some of the schemes of the RBI, such as the gold, what is that? The gold card scheme is there, and equalization scheme is there, which actually provides export credit. So you can conclude your answer by stating all these kind of stuff. All right. So the next question is, what are the main features of the following documents? Which is a 10-marker question. All right. Letters of credit, bill of lading, commercial invoice, council invoice, insurance certificate. So basically these all documents are related to foreign trade only. So first one is the letters of credit. Now the letter of credit actually, it is basically issued from the importer's bank to the exporter bank that guarantees that the payment will be provided on time. It is basically a kind of guarantee which is being provided from the importer to the exporter. How? With the help of the bank. So in that case, what happens is there is this importer and exporter. There is the sales contract between both of them, and both parties' banks are involved in this. All right. So whenever there is a sale contract between both the parties, so here the importer actually wants to take the help of the letters of credit, because initially and at that point of time he does not have the finances to buy that quantity of exports. So he would ask his bank or request his bank to issue him the letters of credit. Now the bank what does is, the importer's bank would send this letter of credit to the exporter's bank, and the exporter bank would tell the exporter that I have received the letter of credit from the importer's bank. And finally, when the exporter has been made sure that there is the legal that has been taken by the importer's bank to provide it on time, then the exporter would finally send his work to the. So this is how the letters of credit works actually. All right. Now, next one is the bill of lading. One more thing, that you can write your answer. If you write your answer in this diagrammatical or the flowchart form, that would become very easy even for you to easily and quickly finish your answer. One thing. And the examiner would also get the idea about the clarity, that you have the clarity or the understanding of the answer very much. All right. Now the next one is the bills of lading. What is the bill of lading? Bill of lading basically is kind of a document where all the details of the cargo which is the export material that is being carried by the ship. All right. The details such as the name of the ship, the destination's name, the carrier's name, the ship's name, the vessel number, or the destination where it would go, the sourcing, all of these kind of details have been mentioned in this kind of document. And this is a document which is issued by the from carrier to the shipper. Now, who is the carrier and who is the shipper? Carrier is the master or the captain of the ship. That would be carrying the cargo, and shipper is actually the exporter or the shipping agent. All right. So why is this provided? Because just to tell that because the carrier makes sure the shipper that all of the stuff which you have given has been carefully received by me, and later on the original copy of this bill of lading is finally provided by the shipper to the importer also at the end. All right. This is basically one more thing that needs to be noticed here is the document actually is issued by the shipper, which is signed by the carrier. So we call it that it is a document which the carrier provides to the shipper, because the guarantee is being provided by the carrier to the shipper that I have received this in this quantity and this in this quality of material, and this in this the name of the material, actually whatever has been provided to that. So this is the idea behind bill of lading document. Next one is the commercial invoice. See, commercial invoice, again a very easy thing. As the name only is suggesting, commercial invoice basically is the sales proof, or we can say contract proof between the trade which has happened between the importer and the exporter. Basically, it also contains the details such as the name of the importer, the name of the exporter, the name of the vessel, the ports of departure and the ports of arrival, such and such, that kind of information. Now, this is being provided from the exporter to the importer. If it is a very small kind of transaction where the importer has actually made the payment parallelly to the exporter, or in case where the bills of letters of credit or banker's acceptance has been used, the exporter gives this document to importer's bank in that case. All right. Next one is the counselor invoice. Now, what is counselor invoice? Counselor invoice basically whenever something is being exported to a country, and during the time of the import some excise duty has to be paid. All right. Now, to make sure the exporter wants to know that whether the excise duty or the whole of the payment for that particular export has been done successfully by the importer or not. This counselor invoice comes handy. Now, what is the counselor invoice and who issues this? Now, this counselor invoice is to be issued by the council of the importer country, that all the kind of the payment which was mentioned in and the amount of the excise duty actually has been paid by the importer, which assures the exporter that all the payment has been made, everything has been done, and then finally it is just to satisfy him that your payment is made and everything is settled now. So this is basically issued by the counselor of the importer country to the exporter. All right. Now comes the insurance certificate. Again, a very easy document to understand, because see, all the cargo which goes through the ship is being insured, and this becomes the duty of the exporter to ensure that the importer would get each and every stuff he has ordered very safely. He would get all that. So exporter basically issues this insurance certificate which contains the information on the goods being shipped, such as the quantity of the ships, the quantity of the the shipment, and the number of the goods being sold. So generally here, open or floating age policy is followed. What is this policy? Floating age policy or the open policy? Here what happens is all the shipments by one exporter are being covered under the insurance policy. All right, it is done because so that there is no need to provide individual insurance for each shipment. So this is basically the insurance certificate. So like that you can explain each and every the document being mentioned in the question.